where he is currently promoting his new book, is our great friend for this show, Andy Ngo. Outsiders fans have been enjoying Andy Ngo's insights and commentary for several years now, including the horrific day we spoke to Andy only hours after he was bashed and beaten at an Antifa rally. Andy, it's so great to see you, looking fit and well there in London. Your new book is called Unmasked: Inside Antifa's Radical Plan to Destroy Democracy. Well, nobody knows more about that than you. Tell us about the book, Andy.
The book is an expose on Antifa's ideology, history, and most crucially, how they organize, how they get funding. And it also chronicles the events of 2020. My hometown, Portland, Oregon, is the epicenter of American Antifa, and it was there that for more than 120 days they rioted night after night. So for all the politicians on the left who have been condemning what happened on the 6th of January in the Capitol Hill, which should be condemned, they were at best silent last year when my city was literally under siege, and at worst they actually promoted some of the crowdfunding campaigns to get some of these accused rioters back out on the streets.
And Andy, you've had to flee Portland. You're in London because you've had to flee Portland because it's too dangerous for you. Tell us.
Yeah, for a number of months now, there's just been increasing threats of violence against me, promises by Antifa extremists to kill me. And all of those threats were reported to authorities. And even when I provided names of some of the suspects, nothing was done. It's pained me a lot to temporarily having to leave the country and home that settled my parents, who came there as political refugees.
Rita?
Yeah, you've turned into a political refugee yourself, having to flee your home to go to London. Now, were there ever any arrests made, before I ask you about the violence we're seeing from Antifa again, were there any arrests made? Because your assault was captured on camera, multiple angles. What happened with the police investigation?
It came to nowhere. As far as I know, there's not been a single arrest. And even when my legal counsel has provided names of suspects that we uncovered through our own work, nothing was done. So last year, when the DOJ described some...
Why do you think that the police in those places are not investigating these offences? Because they're not, it's not just offences against you. We're seeing businesses burnt down, people bashed in the street. There's just so much captured on camera, and yet there seems to be no punishment for the offenders.
So I have a lot of sympathy for the beat cops, but they follow a chain of command, and police chiefs and those who are high up are essentially political actors. And as of right now, the cause for BLM, the cause for so-called anti-fascism is popular. So these violent extremists on the far left are using the cloak of social justice and racial justice to excuse their acts of terrorism.
James?
Andy, as somebody who's been seeing this on the ground and, as you say, been a victim of a lot of this violence, what do you say to the comments that Joe Biden made that Antifa was just an idea? I mean, is this just a complete disconnection from reality? And what does it portend for how the federal government deals with what would be, if they were of a different political stripe, classed as domestic terrorists?
I think he and his advisors should read my book, because in Unmasked, for the first time, I published documents that were leaked to me from somebody who actually joined Rose City Antifa, which is the Antifa organization in Portland. And you can see in those documents that this is indeed there is an organization. There's a vetting process, there's a membership process, and there's a process of radicalization and training, recruitment, etc.
Andy, you mentioned before how the left under Biden refused to kind of acknowledge what has been going on in Portland and other places. Just have a listen here to Jen Psaki, who's the new press secretary, Joe Biden's press secretary. She's asked specifically to comment on the situation of Antifa in Portland, but she evades it. And notice how she tries to suggest that all the violence and riots in America now are simply due to what happened 2 weeks ago on Capitol Hill. Have a listen, Andy.
Does the president have any comment on the ongoing violence in Oregon and Washington state that we've seen in recent days?
Well, certainly we had our team on the ground, our national security team, even before 12:01, early in the morning on Inauguration Day, because we wanted to be able to monitor events happening across the country and any unrest that was resulting from the last couple of weeks.
So, Andy, your thoughts on that?
So the Capitol had thousands of troops pour in to protect the Capitol building because there was a fear that Trump supporters would not allow the peaceful transfer of power to happen. The troops should have been sent to Portland and Seattle because on Inauguration Day there were multiple riots. There were 15 arrests in Portland alone, and others backgrounds that I looked into, around half of them are people who were arrested and released and had their charges dropped last year. So this is a nightmare version of Groundhog Day.
Rita?
Well, what happened during that summer of rioting? We saw a lot of businesses burned down and people bashed, but were federal facilities also attacked? Could there be some comparisons you could make with the riots at the Capitol, and was the response in any way similar?
Yeah, so everything that the rioters did at the Capitol Hill siege, they did in Portland and worse on federal property. So the federal courthouse in downtown was the site of weeks and weeks of nightly attempts to burn it down. With my own eyes, I saw people come with explosives, they came with knives, they came with electric power tools to try to cut into the building. They tried to barricade the federal officers inside there so they could burn down and kill them. This was open terrorism that was happening, and the response from Democrat politicians at the time and local elected officials, they described those federal officers as Trump's Gestapo and secret police.
James?
Yep.
So what then is the political program of Antifa? I mean, we know that it's very, very violent, that they target anybody who they perceive to be on the right, and they also target government buildings. What do they want? What is their goal? What do they want to happen? Or is it just simply they want chaos and violence?
The end goal is to abolish the United States, to overthrow the U.S. government. So they should be treated as an anti-government domestic terrorist movement, organization, ideology, and currently they've been given cover in the mainstream press, in academia, in every institution in America, because people don't understand the ideology. When you look at their literature, they're calling for the destabilization of local governments, and to some effect, they've had a lot of power in the Pacific Northwest. You need to remind people who are watching that last year, Antifa and BLM actually seized territory in Seattle, Washington for more than 3 weeks, and it led to multiple homicides and shootings.
Well, Andy Ngo, it's always great to chat to you. Keep safe. You're an extremely brave individual. Where can people buy your book, Unmasked?
It's on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
Wherever books are sold. Fantastic. Okay. Well, we'll put it up on the screen. Here it is. So I urge Outsiders viewers who are big fans of yours to go out and buy the book Unmasked. Support Andy in the terrific work he does. One of the bravest individuals I certainly know. Andy Ngo, thanks so much for coming on Outsiders again, and we look forward to speaking to you in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you.